the Horn Top 20 Countdown, because we are at number 9 on our way to number 1.
Was not prepared.
Potentially
It's
we will
coming.
do that.
Here we go.
It's coming. We coming, indeed.
All right, Clemson Tigers, number 9 in the countdown. Before we get to Clemson, Ty, I sent you this. I wanted to play this real quick because yesterday we had number 10 Utah, right? Before we talk Clemson, get your thoughts, Rod, on a Garrett Riley-led offense with a Dabo Swinney-led team, what they think is a really good defense. I sent Ty. I sent you this, Ty. The update from yesterday, because we had Utah at 10, and Kyle Whittingham gave an update about Cam Rising's status, because yesterday was a big question, right? When we talked to Pete Futak,
he brought that up.
Cam Rising got a knee injury, got hurt in the bowl game, the Rose Bowl, and his status for early in the season when they play, Florida in their first game, they're at Baylor in their second game. Here's Kyle Whittingham, the head coach of Utah, talking about the status of the former Longhorn Cam Rising.
Yeah, there'd be a cutoff date, probably 10 minutes before kickoff. If he's not ready to go, then we'll go with Plan B. It's a day-by-day thing right now, and that's as good as I can tell you. And we're just, I can tell you that for the 2 spot, Bryson Barnes and Nate are on equal footing right now. Nate's closed the gap, and they're exactly in a dead heat at this point.
All right, so dead heat. Cam Rising.
Whenever Cam Rising is ready to play, he's gonna play. Like, that's basically what he says. Like, even up until what he said the last minute before kickoff, and we're gonna be evaluating if Cam can go. He's gonna go.
Yeah, and that's a little more clarity on what Utah's about. And remember, I mean, it's huge because they're a tough game. I mean, that's a tough Florida game at home.
They start off right. They got
Florida
some tough games early.
Florida and Baylor.
Yep.
And then UCLA week 4. So they're hopeful he's back. But as Pete Futak pointed out, 3 of those 4 games are at home, and they're really good in Salt Lake City.
That's true. He did say they were basically a different team altogether. Their blueprint doesn't work as well on the road, but at home, though, without your starting quarterback, that's still a tall task, man.
Especially a 23-year-old senior quarterback who's played in a couple Rose Bowls. You could use him in those big games instead of someone who's never started a football game for you. That could be the option for Kyle Whittingham. And that could be the difference, big picture, when you're talking about them is with Washington and USC. And, of course, they're the defending champions 2 times in the Pac-12. So on their way to the Big 12 next year. Hey, Rob, what do you make of Clemson and the ACC? I mean, Clemson – pretty salty group. They have not seemed to be the same team since the Trevor Lawrence, Deshaun Watson run.
Yep.
Are they slipped, or is this a team that gets them back into the conversation? Big picture.
They're still recruiting really well, and they got talent on defense. I just think they had a lot. They lost a lot of key cogs in a short amount of time. And I think it's just tough. Remember, they lost the offensive coordinator who ended up getting a head coaching job. Brett Venables left to get a head coaching job. And one of the keys to Dabo's success had been, even though he had risen to the highest levels of college football, been a championship level program, he had been able to keep a lot of coaching continuity together. Which is actually something that's tough to do these days. Ask Nick Saban. Everybody comes to poach his staff all the time. And now I think that was a big part of it. So I think there was a lot of adjustment for him, adjusting to losing Brent Venables, who had been there forever, losing some of his offensive staff and offensive coordinators. And now they've brought in Garrett Riley from TCU as the offensive coordinator there. And they've really figured out a kind of a new identity on defense, a post-Venables era on defense. And I think that was important for them to figure out. But they still, in terms of that defensive front, they've still got one of the better defensive fronts in all of college football. And if Cade Klubnik is as good as all of the Westlake people tell me Cade Klubnik is, they won't have a problem with that Garrett Riley offense. Matter of fact, they should be a really prolific offense, because now that Garrett Riley offense is known as being a really quarterback-friendly offense. And I don't know if he was in a quarterback-friendly offense prior to this.
Yeah, they have a good running back duo there. They have a tight end that's ready to go. The question's going to be a wide receiver for them. For Garrett Riley, because last year when he installed that at TCU, and he was throwing to Quentin Johnston and Tay Barber, really good receivers. That's a question there, but the defense is loaded. Their duo of linebackers might be the best in the country, certainly the best in the ACC.
Yeah,
their D-line and their pass rush will be ferocious.
Stacked.
Well, here's my question, big picture on Clemson, because I know and he said it publicly a lot, that a mentor for Dabo Swinney has been Mac Brown. Like Mac Brown was someone who he patterned his program after, the family atmosphere, the family vibe. And here's my question for Dabo, because much like Mac Brown, we followed his trajectory. He went from from Sims to Vince Young to Colt.
Yeah.
And then the Garrett Gilbert years, and it began to decline. For Dabo Swinney, it went Deshaun Watson, Trevor Lawrence, and then DJ Uiagalelei didn't work.
Didn't work.
And it seemed like they lost their way a little bit offensively, and he was a mess. And, the folks out at Oregon State are talking about how this DJ U is being let go to do his thing, and he's playing great, and he's going to be one of the best players in the Pac-12 as a former 5-star quarterback. We'll see. That's my question on Dabo, because I love Dabo as a coach. He's won at the highest levels, just like Mac Brown did. But Steve Sarkisian always says evolve or die. Is he evolving? He won't play the transfer portal game. He's not big on the NIL thing. He kind of frowns against that, even though he knows he's got to play in it. He's old school, and he's hesitant and reticent to go there. I remember, covering the Mac Brown teams, and I always thought one of the big failings of Mac was, when Nick Saban, who beat him for that national championship in 2009, when Nick Saban came back from the NFL, he installed the beginnings of what we see now in football, where the support staff. Mm-hmm. You install a front office, essentially, like you would in the NFL, and you borrowed that right from the Miami Dolphins and said, there's no rule not doing this, guys. Why wouldn't we have our own scouting team and helping us build a recruiting board and analysts and extra sets of eyes? There's no rule in the NCAA against it, and we can afford it. And I just remember Mac Brown saying, nah, I don't like that.
I remember him saying, you're right. He was fighting against that. He said it would lead to the separation of the have and the have-nots.
Yes.
He didn't want to do that.
And he didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
And, of course, Nick Saban said, okay. And then, of course, Urban Meyer copied it at Ohio State. Kirby Smart certainly did it when he got to Georgia. Steve Sarkisian's doing it now. And it led to Mac, I think, being behind. Mm-hmm. He fell behind the powers of college football because at the time he was the power. Texas was an absolute power, and those examples. Also, Mac kind of changed his recruiting philosophy, and players
changed his
offense, and it's like, I just wonder with Dabo, is he getting? If you're not evolving, if you're still trying to hold the old guard and hold the line, I worry. Now, this could be the team. This could be the year, because Uiagalelei, not the guy, but Cade Klubnik looked like the real deal. I mean, we saw him in high school here. Really a good player. Obviously had a great year last year once he took over, and had a good Orange Bowl for them. Ty Cade Klubnik, you saw him at Westlake many times. What are his strengths versus some of those other great Westlake quarterbacks?
I think he's even more of an athlete than Sam Ehlinger was.
Wow.
His rushing ability. You saw it last year whenever he would come in. His ability to lead an offense emotionally, through the ups and downs of a game. I feel like that's something DJU struggled with. Just confidence. Cade Klubnik does not lack any confidence.
Yeah, and I agree with what you said about the athlete thing. I remember him in that state title game opening up like that stride. He was on the sideline.
He's a track star.
Bro, I was like, whoa. What did he run? Because he went in 200, 400?
I think he broke like state records in the hurdles.
And that makes sense, the hurdles, because his stride was it was long. I mean, I was like, I did not know he opened up the stride like that.
I'm going to say this, and you might not agree with me, but it's kind of a Vince Young stride.
I don't disagree with that. I was thinking it, and I was like, I can't say it because people are going to be text me on the Specs text line, Robbie, what the hell? Cade Klubnik VY? But the stride is what we're talking about. He does a long strider once he gets in the open field. Yeah, totally agree with that.
No, and we'll see. And Andy's a very accurate passer, great anticipation, maybe not the strongest arm in the world, but, man, really smart in the pocket, and that could bring Dabo Swinney. And with Garrett Riley, who's got the last name and the pedigree, whenever they have – when they take guys like Max Duggan –
turn him into a Heisman finalist.
Jalen Hurts all of a sudden for Lincoln Riley's turned into,
It's a quarterback-friendly system. And
to say the least.
Yeah, so now I think you're going to see the Cade Klubnik, not only his rate of development, his developmental track, are I think going to end up meeting in a confluence the compatibility of this quarterback-friendly system, and that's what you could really see a breakthrough.
Yeah,
for Cade Klubnik.
They got to have the receivers to run it because it's the Riley system is a spread it but run, right? They do the power run thing, and then they play action off of that and hit deep shots, and the passing game is elite. But they got to have that because remember TCU last year with
Kendre Miller.
Kendre Miller could pound the rock and run the ball with a good offensive line, and then Quentin Johnston was just a beast when he got single covered on the outside. Tay Barber brought the speed and the quickness. The receiver position is questioned. And look, I say Dabo might be sliding. They went 11-3 last year. I mean, they were the one.
Yeah, it's like what we say about Bama this year. We're like, Bama might regress to a 10-win team.
yeah.
It's like, that's a regression? Like, actually, yes, that is a big regression for Alabama. But yes, I'm with you. I understand.
Well, that linebacker group, Barrett Carter and Jeremiah Trotter Jr., I mean, that might be the best linebacker duo in the country.
I think you're right about that. Didn't you say the running backs are pretty good, too, for Clemson?
I think the backs are solid.
This is why it helps for Garrett Riley. And you're right. They don't have proven commodities at receiver just yet. I'm sure they got some young, talented guys who we just haven't seen. But the one thing about that offense, they stress a defense with those with the really extreme formations, whether it be wide splits of wide receivers or bunch formations that are really split out wide, because they want to force the defense to play with light boxes. And if you play with a light box, that means you're trying to win the numbers advantage on the outside and defend all of their wide receivers and defend all of the space, more importantly, they're creating with those wide splits. But if you do that and you're light in the box, that's why a guy like Kendre Miller was going to work last year for TCU, because it was like, well, we're going up against light box. We're just going to run the rock. And a quarterback that can run in Max Duggan. That's the element they're going to bring to Clemson. You got a quarterback that can run, as Todd just talked about. You got running backs that can get the job done. They'll force defenses to play them with light boxes. When they do, they will make you pay.
Yeah, Will Shipley is their best all-round back. He was over 1,100, almost 1,200 yards last year. Good receiver. And then they have the 230-pound kid, Phil Mafa.
Oh, he's going to be a problem.
Phil Mafa.
Mafa.
Mafa, problem.
Mafa, the mofo. Mofo, Mafa.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
All right. So Clemson is our number 9 team, and they're right there with Florida State for the for the ACC, right?
Yep,
you may have North Carolina in there.
Yeah, because of Drake May, people put North Carolina in there. When Max got a quarterback, watch out. We know that.
People wonder about Mac's defense, though. And Clemson has a defense.
True. Yeah.
Florida State's a really good team, but Florida State gets tested early with LSU. So we'll see. There's number 9.